All right, here we are at Wine World of Spirits in Seattle, and Chris is from Craggy Range, and Craggy Range is one of my favorite wineries from New Zealand. And everybody always thinks of New Zealand as being Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc, and Sauvignon Blanc. While they make a fantastic Sauvignon Blanc, they also do Chard and Pinot and a Bordeaux-style blend. So what I wanted to ask you about is, how do you explain that to people who just think you're a one-trick pony in New Zealand and you can do everything?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think if you could imagine for a second that New Zealand were in the northern hemisphere instead of the southern hemisphere. We're actually, it's easy for us to think about that since we're in North America. So if you were to flip New Zealand upside down and you look at the region Martinborough, where Pinot Noir comes from, it would actually run the exact same line of latitude as Oregon if it were the northern hemisphere. Where Takahu comes from, which is a blend of Bordeaux varietals, Merlot dominant with Cabernet Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon and Malbec, that would run the exact same line of latitude as Napa Valley. And given our maritime climate that all the great wine regions of the world enjoy, it kind of makes sense why we plant what we plant and where we plant it.
Right. Yeah. Wow, fantastic. So, is America kind of getting excited about the things other than Sauvignon Blanc, or is that mostly something you're selling in New Zealand?
It's kind of an uphill battle for us right now. I saw last year, our data showed that about 97% of all wines exported from New Zealand to the United States was Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. 3% was everything else. So, but at least we're at 3% today versus 1% 5 years ago. So it's a slow build. But we are starting to see, especially more traction on Pinot Noir. People are starting to recognize quality Pinot Noirs from New Zealand. The Chardonnays and the Bordeaux varietals and Syrah are a bit more difficult.
So one last question. Steve Smith is part of the team.
Yes.
From what I understand, he was this master of wine and basically was offered the opportunity to just build an amazing winery with somebody else's money as long as he didn't screw it up. And he's been there ever since, right?
Yes.
And so what is it about this winery that kind of separates you guys? Because you are really one of the top wineries in New Zealand.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. Your story's close. First, in case Steve is watching this, he's the best boss I ever had. So, thanks, Steve. No, Steve's a really amazing guy. Steve's in his early 50s today, and he's worked every vintage in New Zealand since he was 19 years old. So he knows New Zealand back and forth. He is a master of wine, and he's also a specialist viticulturist with a master's degree in viticultural studies from UC Davis. So he's the only person in the world that has those two credentials. And he's the leading specialist viticulturist that help plant Martinborough, Hawke's Bay, and Central Otago, New Zealand. So he knows where all the key vineyards in New Zealand are, and so his dream, what he wanted to do was, while he wanted to do his own winery, it wasn't just about making Craggy Range successful, it was about promoting all the great varietals that New Zealand puts together. Steve's a pioneer for all New Zealand wines, not just Craggy Range. And so, what was very serendipitous was his meeting with Terry Peabody, whose dream was to start a legacy for his family. And so Terry brought the resources that helped Steve make the best wine that he possibly could. So today, Steve knew where all the best vineyards were, and he planned on buying grapes from those vineyards and making single vineyard wines. And instead of buying grapes from his friends, Terry came in and bought the vineyards. So now these are all wines from estates that we own, all vineyard designated wines, which is all we produce, in an effort to showcase the top terroir areas of New Zealand.
Fantastic. Let's give me a taste.
All right. Cheers. Thank you very much.